This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, welcome and adab. You are listening to Bharat FM, a one-of-its-kind, multilingual, eclectic provider of entertainment, information and news to Indian Americans. Headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, Bharat FM airs shows out of Cincinnati, Chicago and Phoenix. We take pleasure in our ability to cater to your bhakti, chusti, sfurti, shakti and masti needs with our audio and visual shows. Check out bharatfm.com for our online program schedule and archives. I'm sure the content will definitely tickle your senses. Tune in via the 24-hour web streaming on bharatfm.com or via the Bharat FM app. More information can be procured at 513-488-5070.
Hi everyone, good morning. I'm so excited to be back with another episode of Things We Carry. Today I'm with Nazneen Nizami and we're going to be talking a lot about her research, which I think is extremely relevant to anyone in my/our generation because it involves balancing what we need with what we were raised with what our parents taught us, and trying to reconcile both of those things as we grow up as first, second, whatever generation you may be in the United States, exposed to so many more cultures and different types of people than I think our parents were raised around. So I'm really excited to get into your research to hear about everything that you learned and what's surprised you the most from our intro call. This is what I really want to talk about. This is what I love talking about. And this is what my friends and I talk about a ton as well. And as always, a huge thank you to Sahas for Cause and Bharat FM for making this possible. Right now, Sahas for Cause is doing a ton of COVID relief work. And as things are opening up, we can't forget that there are still people who are in need of COVID assistance. And also they provide a ton of other services as well. So please reach out to them. Their information will be in the description of this video. If you need anything at all, they're helping everyone in the South Asian community, regardless of your background. So yeah, hello, welcome. Thank you for being here. Would you like to start with just an intro about yourself, and then we can jump into all the questions I have for you?
Sure. So my name is Nazneen Nizami. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist here in Orange County. I work right now primarily in treatment. So I work at a treatment rehabilitation center. I also teach at the college level. I teach both master's programs for MFTs, and then I also teach some courses for introduction to psychology at local community colleges. Right now I'm at Golden West College, which I really love being there. I grew up here in Orange County, so I was born and raised an OC girl. I have not gone far. I went to UC Riverside for my undergrad and then Loma Linda for my master's program. And just a few weeks ago, I graduated from Alliant International University for my PsyD.
Woo! Congratulations. How does it feel to do all of this in a pandemic, to do everything that you do? You're running to the clinic right after this call. So you are a busy lady.
I like to stay busy. I think when you're doing stuff, whether it's work or a hobby that you feel connected to, you enjoy kind of staying busy. You look at my calendar and it's back to back to back, and you get freaked out, but it's just something I like doing. I like to be involved. I like to be meeting with people, clients, other therapists, students, staying busy.
I know. And there's that saying that's if you want to get something done, give it to someone who's busy, and then likely it'll get done. So yeah, you get stuff done. Okay, I'm going to jump into some of the questions that we ask all of our guests. As always, we're just talking about the patterns, practices, things that we're raised with. As I said in the intro, it's going to really dovetail well into your research, but about you as a person now, I'd love to know, do you have an immigration story? Does your family have an immigration story? What does your background look like in OC and in this country?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I was born and raised here in Orange County. My immigration story is really one of my grandparents.
Okay.
And my dad. So my grandfather on my mom's side, my mom's
Mhm.
dad, he came here specifically up north in California
Yeah.
for engineering.
Mhm.
So he came here for school and he decided to stay.
Mhm.
And over the course of many years, he was able to bring all of the siblings that wanted to come
Oh, wow.
here and their
Yeah.
families. And so that's how my mom's side kind of came here, and we all live in Orange County.
Wow.
So just imagine like 7 siblings and all of their trickle down kids and grandkids.
That is
All
so
here.
nice. You have such a big family.
Very large.
Okay.
And my dad also came here. My parents had an arranged marriage. So
Mhm.
my dad came here, I think he was about 19 when they got married.
Mhm.
And he also recently, within the past 3 years, has been able to bring 3 of his siblings and their families over,
That's nice.
also living in Orange County. So it's just even bigger.
Oh my God, that is so amazing. I am so envious and jealous. I mean, I only like have one set of first cousins from my mom's side. So it's like still like a large family because Indian families, Desi families are just like massive, but not quite as big as that. That's really, really fun to have so many like just built-in friends and like people to hang out with.
Yeah, there's never like a dull moment, I don't
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. And when you're growing up with like so many people around you and like just kind of like everyone who forms your family is here, how did you build your own value system, or like how was it kind of communicated to you growing up, like what your family was about and what they believed in and things like that?
So I'm kind of an anomaly, I think, within the Indian culture. I'm Indian, Gujarati Indian, but I'm also Muslim. And so a lot of the values growing up were really direct from my parents. Like, we don't do these things, or this is how we operate, this is how we treat people. And having such a large family, that's where you practiced it and that's where you saw
Yeah.
how to perform these
Yeah.
values. Right? You might hear me say these words like perform, and that's just like my theoretical side of therapy coming through.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because truly we are performing them, right? And we are instilled values from our parents that we can now decide, like, do I want to perform that particular value? Do I want
Yeah.
it to be part of my system? And I think balancing that, which I'm sure we'll talk about at the end of this, is really difficult when you're coming from a family that is very directive, because there's these high expectations that whatever the family's values are now yours.
Yeah. So it sounds like it was very explicitly communicated rather than like, I mean, I'm sure it was shown as well, but like very like explicit. And I think I've talked to guests previously and they were like, it was never like said that this is what you do. But I think that's like a different situation. People of like our generation though who grow up here, I feel like it's much more explicit. Like when I talk to guests that are of like my parents' generation and above, it's much more like kind of like shown. But I think us growing up here, I think the best way our parents know is to just be like very straight up about it and like tell us what it is.
And
And
when you say explicit, it's more so when you break the lines, right?
Yeah.
It's not preventative.
It's not preventative. And then you're like, oh, I like didn't realize that. Oopsies. Very much ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah.
And when you say perform, not to like get into the nitty gritty, but I found that very interesting. So from your like, from your training side of things, like, is there an opposite to performing? Is in the way we behave?
Maybe internalizing, right? So this is where you can balance the two. Like, I sit in a place where I understand my parents' values and their belief systems, and it's in this like bubble, and like I can see inside the bubble. Like, I can either choose to pick out from the bubble what I want to perform, but I also maybe I internalized some of the things they taught me as my own. Like, how else would I know that these were my own values?
Yeah. And as you started to get older, what are some of the things that you've like still decided, like, you know what, this is something that I do want to pass on, like if you decide to have children or to a future generation? And yeah, we can start there, because I think the things that we don't want to pass on, sometimes I feel like that list is quite long. So we'll start with like what we do want to take on.
Yeah. I think so. I think especially having such a large family here, I definitely want to pass on for my kids, remembering that family, even though they're not necessarily chosen, they're always there.
Yeah.
And so you have people in your court that you can always rely on. You can always come to as support or even guidance. Like I have so many aunts and uncles that I've come to as mentors, helping me through deciding academic decisions, career decisions. I think tying into that is like respect. That's something our culture really hones in on, especially for people that are older than you. And I try to practice that beyond just Indian people, obviously. Like I think that it comes really naturally to just respect people that are older than you and the things that they've, the knowledges that they've acquired over the years, even if it may be a little bit rigid or traditional, but just respecting them and what, their story and where they came from, why they are the way they are. Maybe even like kindness. I truly think that Indian people are very kind.
Yeah.
And the South Asian community specifically, we treat people with very loving demeanor. And so that would be a huge one to carry on for me.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. It sounds like your family's like built on a lot of like humility, kindness, just warmth. I think when you have that many people, I'm sure it's like, you just go to like your aunt and uncle's house and they're like your second set of parents. And that's like so nice. I'm so envious. I love this. And I think the respect thing is also really important, because I know you said that South Asian people are really kind overall. I think what I've seen is it goes like one of two ways. The hyper success, sometimes you're like, the respect needs to be earned, not given. And I think that's something that my parents also kind of like instilled in us, was just like, you respect people regardless. Like it doesn't matter how successful they are, what they have, like that is a given. And then if they give a reason for you to not respect them, like that's a different story. But like that is like the foundation of how you approach and interact with people. And I think, and I hope that like that comes out more, especially in our generation. I meet people who have achieved various levels of success, usually on like the higher side. And I think some of that gets lost because we forget that, not everyone is coming from a certain type of background that's affording them to like that degree of like social ascension. And I think like that gets forgotten. So it is very nice to hear that that is like just so core to some families, because that's definitely how like I grew up as well. And then on the flip side of things, in terms of things that you're like, maybe not the best thing, maybe this is like not serving us, and this is one of those like perform type things. What do you think like you've critically realized, like, okay, like this is not working and this is not something I want to perpetuate?
I think hiding conversations that are really important to have when we're young, like people, especially, and my parents too. I'll throw them under the bus here. We like never had the birds and bees talk.
Yeah,
we never had any real conversations about my balancing of identities or what it was like to be Muslim, and probably the only Muslim in La Palma growing up. These really tough conversations that I understand are difficult and probably really scary for parents to have. But I think being able to address them, it doesn't have to be done in any sort of right way, right? But just being able to address it with the youth in our community is something that we need to start doing, something that we're running from it, but we should change that a little.
Yeah. And it's like, we don't want to talk about it because we're like awkward and shy, but like, what a kind of silly reason to not talk about something. If you really boil it down, they're just like, they're like flustered and they're like shy about it. But like, I think you're right. I think my friends and I even talk about this. We're like, okay, like in the future, when we have kids, like how much do we want to talk to them about just really anything? And how early on do we want to introduce certain concepts? And then like my first instinct is also like, okay, how do you do it? But it's really comforting to hear that it's like, there's no necessarily right way, rather than just like them knowing that there is an open channel of communication and you can talk to your parents about these things. My parents were also in arranged marriage, so like they have no idea what like dating is, and like our conversations around it are always like very funny, and I'm very lucky. They really try to like understand like me and my friends and like meet us in the middle. But like there are certain things that they just weren't simply not exposed to and have like no frame of reference for. So I completely understand that.
Oh yeah. And it's funny too, because like I'm an adult, right? So like
Yeah.
I've been an adult for a while.
Yeah.
Even now when I bring like a partner around,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like, can we hold hands? Like, can I hold his hand in front of you? Like, can we lay on the couch watching a movie? All these things.
Yeah.
Like, never talked about this. I wish we could just talk about it.
I know. I wish we could just talk about it. And they're like, I don't know. Like, they're just like, well, and they get like flustered too. So that's funny. Oh my God. No, and it's true. Like at our big age, we're still so scared. Oh my God. And this actually segues perfectly into your research. Can you tell us what you studied? When you told me this on the phone yesterday, I was just like, I'm so stoked. I'm so excited to talk about it.
Sure. So I basically did a qualitative study looking to explore young adult females' experiences, kind of creating their online identity on the dating apps. So we were really interested in hearing the stories of these young women navigating how they wanted to present themselves through their profile for potential mates.
Got it. And what did you find was like the common like struggle or like the common things that people tended to like lean on across the board?
So there was a lot of themes that emerged. I think the two that are really important for me was balancing authenticity with desirability, which is a really tough concept for especially women.
Yeah.
And the second one that I think is also maybe something I would love to talk about here too, to tie in, is like this pressure for perfectionism and kind of having this like idealized image.
Yeah.
And they play in together for sure.
Yeah, they really do. Oh my God, my brain is buzzing. But so the authenticity versus desirability, I feel like that's, to kind of boil it down, the first thing I thought of is like the cool girl. Like I'm easy to understand and like there's not a lot going on here. Like don't be alarmed. Whereas like, of course, like if you are, I feel like they see South Asian in this country, like you do have like a story and there is like a lot of like family involvement a lot of the time. Either in the way that like you want your family involved or you really don't want them involved in things. So what did you like kind of find in that sense of like, did people tend towards like trying to make themselves as like understandable and as easy to understand as possible? Or like, what was that like?
So within the participants, there was two Desi identifying women, but I'll talk about it in the terms of what most of the multicultural responses were.
Oh, so it wasn't just South Asian women. Okay, I totally misunderstood that. Got it. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, so there was a larger population of women from various cultures, but all the people that identified with some level of non-Western culture had talked about this balance of, I want to appear desirable, not just in this attractiveness way, but also in this way of what you just said. I'm going to be an easy person to mate with. And in doing so, I'm not honoring that I come from a complex community. I have my own complex problems, right? So one of the participants even, I think, I'm not going to butcher her words a little or paraphrase, but she was talking about, I watch a lot of Bollywood movies. I like to listen to Indian music. I eat a lot of Indian food, but I'm not going to put any of that on my profile. Because that narrows me probably only to matching with Indian or Desi men. And so she was probably feeling this like sense of, I need to Americanize myself. I need to Westernize myself in my images, in my responses, in how I present my personality. And I think that that's really common, especially if you grew up here. And it might even be something more like this research is just kind of the beginning stages. There's so much more to explore here. But I wonder too, if we're talking about growing up balancing these two varying cultures, having to decide, like, I talked about this in my epouge in the research. Like, I grew up with this Indian Muslim family who loved me and really gave me a wonderful life, and they gave me these cultural ideas and beliefs. And then I grew up in this community that was predominantly white and Asian, and I was the only Muslim Indian girl there. And so I had to balance, like, okay, I want to take some of the stuff from my parents, but I also want to fit in and like make friends and have a good life with people in my community. And so for a long time, I didn't tell people that I was like Muslim. I just, I avoided that conversation because I really wasn't sure how much of a Muslim I wanted to be, or even how Desi I wanted to be. It didn't come until with age that I kind of figured out for myself, I can be a little bit of both. Like, I can be as much of an American Desi as I want. And that can look a certain way for me, and it doesn't have to look the same way for you.
What was the age range of like these participants also?
So it was 23 to 35. So we were looking at women who were dating to find a partner, basically.
Okay, got it. Okay, makes sense. And I think there's also this struggle that I'm 25, and I think it's finally getting so much easier. I just feel like with age, so much just like disappears into thin air. The stuff that I worried about when I was like 16, like I really don't hear about anymore. And one of those things is like the desirability versus just like authenticity. I think a lot of that comes from like, will they like me? And we forget to center our own experience of like, will I like them? Like, that's actually what matters. Like, you can't control if someone else likes you. And then we're so caught up in like, let me appeal to the masses, when really most people, you only need to appeal to one person. Like, you don't need to appeal to the masses. You're not a pop star. Like, you don't need everyone to like you. You just need a couple people to like you. And then in the romantic sense, usually you only need one person to like you. So it's like, I think we forget that a lot in these experiences. So it's interesting to note that that was like the age range that you were like looking at. And was everyone like straight, or were there different like orientations involved, or what was that?
So this study was specifically with heterosexual men. But there definitely should be studies out, like coming out soon, exploring other LGBTQ plus community members' experiences. The reason I didn't choose to include it as a larger spectrum is because inherently their experiences are probably different. And so I didn't want to devalue or dishonor either experience.
I think there needs to just be like something, like you said, dedicated to just that group of people, because you don't want it to like water down the results of either group of people. So that's very true. And then you said the other thing that you noticed was perfectionism, or like the pressure to present as perfect. Wow, I would really love for someone to study men on dating apps, because like I don't think they feel that pressure. I see some of these profiles with my friends. Our favorite thing, really exposing us here, is one of them will be on the apps. I'm personally not. And we will like airplay it to our TV, and we'll all sit around.
Oh my gosh.
And just like roast people, like order pizza. And this is like our activity for the evening. And I see some of these profiles and I'm like, sir, you really do not care about presenting as perfect or even competent. Like,
Yeah.
forget perfect. I'm like, has a thought occurred in that head in your 27 years of life? I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
That's awesome. I'm going to have to start doing that with my friends.
It's so much fun. Like, it's honestly hours upon hours of entertainment. And one of them has like Hinge Premium or something like that. So she can like put her location anywhere in the world. So we'll just be like, what are all the men in Des Moines doing today? And we'll just like go take a look. Sorry. Continue, but what is like the pressure to be perfect to present as for the group of women that you studied?
So definitely anytime you talk about pressure with image, we have to talk about like body image, body size. And so what was interesting is most of the women had photo altered the images that they were using to put on their profile.
Really?
Mhm. And not just and like you can put a general filter on to change like the color lighting, not just that
Yeah.
kind of thing, but like there was stuff about reducing arm fat or trimming like the waist.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So there really is this, and
Yeah.
it could be again a larger issue at play here that society has right now, and we're balancing like maneuvering into really being comfortable and respecting people's body weight as a culture in America. And so I'm not sure how that plays into it yet. Again, more research definitely needs to be done.
Yeah.
But for women, right, the age 23 to 35, thinking about like where social media started and how it's progressed over the years, like people within this age group are probably battling like having to navigate how can I show people that I'm living my best life, I'm looking fabulous, all these all these ideas that we think we need to have in order to be to be seen as successful or seen as like
Wow.
happy.
Yeah. Oh, that kind of breaks my heart that like I didn't realize people were doing that. And I think I listened to a lot of these
more common than you think.
Yeah.
It really is.
I listened to a lot of these podcasts where like I honestly did not realize that people were doing these on the apps, because I will hear people write in and be like, I'm scared to go on this date because I look different. I'm like, what do you mean you look different? Like this person already saw you. But I guess like even if it's like, okay, like even if it's slightly slimming or trimming or whatever, I mean, that must be so much mental and emotional pressure going into any of these situations. And then you're not fully being yourself. Did a lot of these women say that they had a lot of pressure to find a partner, or they felt it like internally to find someone?
I'd say that all of the participants joined some version of the app to find a partner. So as far as we didn't get into like the pressures, some of them shared, I'm reaching an age where I need to start having a long-term partner so that I could have kids.
Yeah,
the age thing.
Yeah.
Some of them just wanted to start exploring because they knew like I'm young, like this is a time for me to meet people. So it was kind of a mix.
Yeah, I mean, and this is maybe not like specifically to your study, and feel free to add in like from whatever you've seen personally as well. But I think a lot of that comes in when we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to find someone, and we're like in the process of finding someone, you abandon yourself really just because you're so set on someone else. And I think in a culture where we're taught to aspire to a relationship, I really feel like men don't see it this way. I don't know if they're talking about relationships in the same way as women do. I only have 2 guy friends, and I think that's more than enough for me. Like I found the only 2 emotionally intelligent people in all of California. So I'm like, this is enough. I really don't know if men are talking about like that, but for women, it feels like a badge of honor. It feels like something to aspire to. And when you're placing it on a pedestal, I don't think anything that's placed on a pedestal comes from a place of being authentic. Like you can't, because you're just, again, it's like the perfectionism. It's the aspirational quality to it all. Yeah.
I think what you're hitting really well here is like when you're thinking about finding a mate or a lifetime partner or a long-term partner, that relationship has to be cultivated really naturally, and things need to come up really naturally between you guys. I think about some of my aunts in this particular situation who are in their 30s or late 30s, and they're single, and it's not like they just avoided dating. They've been dating. They've been trying to meet people. It just things haven't clicked, right? And for them, I can imagine how much even more difficult it is when you have family members kind of making comments about you being single or really pressuring you to get your bio data out there. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, oh, I talked to this other auntie who has this person of this
Yeah.
person, this son. And it's like, do you want to meet them? And then it becomes this whole thing about like, well, I just can imagine it's very difficult for them.
Yeah, I'm sure it's really hard for them. And when you say like it needs to come up naturally, I think that's like the best way it's been put. Like, I think you probably just meant that as like a throwaway statement, but that really clicked with me because I hear like so many of my friends will go on dates and they're like, oh, like, was I too crazy? Like, did he see too much of my craziness? And I'm always like, okay, I'm not perfect, but I like at this point, like literally don't care. I'm like, I like my life and it's going where I'm going. And if you want to come with me, we can go together or I will go alone. And that is okay. And I also, again, I'm 25. I have the luxury of time in society's eyes. So, well, not everyone's eyes, but in my eyes, the people that matter to me, I have time. But that's like the thing. It's like, no, it needs to come up naturally. You said something a little out there on the first date. That's okay. Like you, I don't know, got a little too drunk. Like that's okay. You're a human. Like you're a person and you share because you felt like it was the time to share. And then obviously in retrospect, when you like, I always say like when you take the memory off a shelf and revisit it, it's always going to seem cringier than it was and not as accurate. You shared those things in the moment for a reason. If that person can't handle it, they're not your match. And it's that simple. Like you can't like go into every situation like desperately hoping that it's going to click every single time is what I think.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. And how in your family has like, if I can ask, like the marriage conversation been like approached? Because you might have, I'm assuming, a lot of cousins your age as well. And what is that conversation like from like the brood of parents above you all?
Well, let me start by saying there's 3 cousins within my age frame. So it's me, my male cousin, and another male cousin. We're all 1.5 years apart. And then I'm scattered across that, but we're kind of just one little chunk.
Okay.
One of them is getting married in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And so it's so funny because as we're prepping for this wedding, you'll just get little comments in the ear. So when is it your turn? Are you next? That boyfriend you have, when is that happening? It's like, okay.
Yeah. And so you've like, you said you've introduced your partner to your family and everything like that. What was that process like? And when you were going through your study, did you ever have any things that like just like hit really close to home where you're like, oh my gosh, what this person said, I just resonate with that so much in my personal experiences?
Yeah, I think as far as like introducing my current partner, it was really easy because we've been friends for a long time, 13 years.
Amazing.
But if I talk about maybe my last boyfriend who I had met in college, we didn't have this like foundation of friendship where my parents already knew him. And there was a lot of anxiety for me just making that initial introduction, again, because he wasn't part of our culture. He didn't identify as a South Asian person. And so it was always this kind of awkward conversation to have. My mom's obviously a little bit more comfortable talking about this than my dad. So I first approached my mom and then went to my dad.
As it tends to go. Okay.
But you know, my parents I think this is where, and they could speak for themselves, but I'll put the words in their mouth. They love who I am because I'll take their values and what they expect from me, and I'll respect that, but I'll also challenge them a lot. So if I feel like there are things that and this is where the background comes in, where each individual has their own background and culture and how they developed, and that's why they are the way they are. If I think about the way my parents are, of course, they're not going to have the same beliefs as me because we grew up so differently, right? Like, and so when I see that they are trying to instill all of their beliefs in me, I kind of challenge them and really have them reflect upon like, well, I'm coming from a different place than you are. So let's just maybe we can be a little bit creative. And they're really receptive, which is I have great parents. Again, I'm really grateful for them.
Yeah.
For your second question, anything in the research that I really felt connected to, there was this one African American participant who talked about having to put her pictures up with specific hairstyles. So she was basically saying, like, I don't want to put pictures of me up in braids, or, you know, like certain types of culturally appropriate hairstyles. She didn't want any pictures on her profile of those. She rather wanted like feathered hair or straightened hair, well done hair.
Even the context of like well done. Yeah.
It's very interesting. And I connected with that too, because like she specifically was talking about braids and culturally appropriate hair attract other Black men, but it also narrows me into this category of only dating Black men. And that's not something she wants. She wants to be open and date people of all cultures because she has interest in people of all cultures. And I've always connected with that idea of like, I have crazy hair right now. It's a little tamed, but I have crazy hair. And so I always think about like presentability with hair, right?
Yeah.
And just before we got on, I didn't know this was video. So I didn't put any makeup on. I didn't do my hair. And I'm sitting here with like, oh my God, it's asking for my camera. Like, I didn't do my hair.
You look amazing. Your skin is, I was like, wow. I wonder if that's makeup because I was literally like, your skin is incredible and your brows. So you look amazing.
Thank you. Well, but it was just this feeling of anxiety of like, and this is where I totally understand where she's coming from. How you present yourself then becomes a reflection of who you are, right? And then who it reflects not only who you are, but in the Desi community, it's who you are and who your family is.
Oh my gosh. Yes. The things we carry on our backs. Truly. Like that's what this show is going to be called from now. The things we carry on our back. Like it's a lot and it's really heavy. That is a lot of pressure. And it's actually kind of staggering the things that each community has to worry about. And I am just like, I'm very like, believe women, sympathize with women. Women are always right for the most part. So, and it is honestly really staggering, like the things that we have to think about and like conform to. And once again, I must ask, do men do this? I don't know. I think they have the height thing, but even that is becoming so like negligible at this point, I feel like. So,
and you know what? I think maybe that's something too within our community we could change from a generational level, is bringing up these conversations with men, not just women, right? The things we talk about. And it's so funny because I have one brother, it's just us two, he's younger than me. And I can imagine for him, he really didn't know how to do his own laundry for a long time. He didn't know how to cook his meals, just basic living things, essentials to live.
Oh my God. Okay.
I remember specifically, I was young. I was already doing the dishes. I was doing the laundry. I was folding the laundry. I was putting the laundry away. I was like being told, you know, what to be doing. Are you doing your homework at these times? And he never really had those same expectations. So maybe it's with generationally talking to the boys.
Talking to the boys and the younger siblings, because my younger sister, she might as well be the brown boy of our household. I tell my parents this all the time. I'm like, what do you mean? You helped her with this thing. Like, shouldn't she be able to do that herself? Like, and then I enable her. Like, I'll literally be like, did you eat today? She'll be like, no. And then I'm like, okay, I'm Postmating you food. And she's like in San Diego and I'm in LA. And I'm like, I'm Postmating you something.
And we're part of the problem. Like, I do the same thing. I jumped in at the occasion of like, oh, you're not doing these things? Like, okay, yeah, I'll make you an egg sandwich for breakfast. Like,
no more egg sandwiches for your brother.
And you know what? He overheard me talking about this exact situation once in a supervision therapy group.
Yeah.
And he got really upset at me. Like, why could you throw me under the bus that way? I'll just start making my own egg sandwiches. So I was like, fine, like make your own egg sandwiches. That's okay. And he started to do it. And you know what? He started to have like pride about his egg sandwich and he was really excited for it. So, and this is just a silly story, but it really showed like once you kind of let them off this like coddling leash, he was able to fend for himself and be and pride.
And for himself, make incredible egg sandwiches, went on to make the best egg sandwich on the West Coast. Oh my God. This was so much fun. I want to like make sure that you get to clinic on time and everything. So I think this egg sandwich story is a great place to close. Thank you so much for being here. I am definitely going to message you with some more questions about the work that you do. And you are truly incredible. And you've broken down, I feel like, a lot of complex concepts and what I'm sure was a very in-depth study into like such a bite-sized piece. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Of course. And of course, thanks again to Bharat FM, Saas for Cause. As mentioned, Saas for Cause is doing a ton of work for the South Asian community. If you need absolutely anything at all, please reach out to them. They are here to just like be a support system for anyone who is a marginalized community member. So please reach out to them and their info will be in the bio. Thank you again, Nazneen.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.